Next person to be with us is Professor Andrea Papatheodorou. Professor Andrea Papatheodorou is perhaps the most world-renowned authority on air transportation industry. His research and also his teaching and sharing in this area, he's very well known in this field of air transportation aviation industry. A PhD from University of Oxford, and he is now a professor at University of Aegean in Greece. It is at 4:30 a.m. in Greece, so we couldn't wake him up so early in the morning. He kindly made a video presentation of 10 minutes and sent to us. So let's watch Professor Andrea Papatheodorou's video presentation to understand more about the future of airline and aviation industry. Thank you.
Good morning. I would like to warmly thank PolyU and the organizers of the Impact 2020 conference for kindly inviting me to act as a speaker on the future of the aviation industry. Aviation and tourism are structurally interrelated, and the demand for air transport is a derived one. Very few people fly for the sake of flying. Most people fly to go somewhere and do something. The two sectors are strongly cyclical, highly sensitive to changes in the economic, social, and political environment. And we can actually say that air transport is a par excellence tourism sector because it has a tourist ratio exceeding 90%. About 57% of international tourists traveled by air in 2018, sharp rise compared to what was the case in 1980. And on top of that, air transport is a major income and job generator, not only as a whole, but also in the context of tourism income and related jobs. For all these reasons, route development has also emerged as a major priority over the last few years for airlines, airports, and destination managers. The idea is that the different stakeholders should come together in order to ensure that different destinations do not end up becoming victims of their own success. What matters is improved accessibility, but in the context of sustainable tourist development. And in fact, until a few months ago, everybody was talking about over-tourism, and this is a very nice picture that we shot from the island of Santorini in Greece. But as a result of COVID-19, which was essentially a black swan for the tourism industry, from over-tourism we went straight into zero tourism. And this is a picture shot outside Rome's Colosseum on the 28th of March at the very height of travel restrictions and quarantine. ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization, predicts over the entire year we're going to see a decline between 59 and 62% in terms of world tourism passengers. And as we can see from this graph, air traffic has been quite resilient since the end of the Second World War. Since 1945 until 2019, we've seen almost an exponential increase in spite of various hiccups related to different crises. Oil crisis, wars, terrorist attacks, economic and financial crisis. But overall, the trend has been quite positive. Having said that, COVID-19 has resulted into something which is really, really unprecedented. As a result, and according to the latest ICAO estimates, the impact is going to be very negative. We're going to see a sharp reduction in terms of passengers, close to 3 billion passengers, approximately between $388 and $400 billion of potential loss of gross passenger operating revenue of airlines. And again, for early 2021, figures are not that positive either. ICAO expects that we're going to see an overall reduction ranging from 34 to 47% of seats of airlines. And on top of that, we're going to see an overall reduction exceeding 504 million, actually between 504 and 681 million passengers. Again, this is going to result into a major loss for airlines between $72 and $96 billion in terms of gross passenger operating revenue. On top of that, we need to realize that load factors currently remain at record lows, and this graph comes from IATA comparing and contrasting June 2019 and June 2020 for all different regions of the world. At present, we are very, very close to record lows. The notable exception here is domestic China, where, as you can see, back in June 2020, the load factor was 69.5, much higher compared to the all-time low, of course, lower to what was the case in June 2019. So a bright thing to remember is that in Asia Pacific and predominantly in China, it seems that air transport has somehow started recovering. The second pillar of brightness, if there is any brightness in what we've experienced over the last months, is cargo. And between January 2020 and February or March, air cargo was going down, but from then onwards, we've seen a sharp rebound as a result of medical supplies which had to be urgently delivered to different areas of the world. Having said that, now supply chains become somehow streamlined, things change, but of course, if we end up seeing the development of vaccines or other medicine related to COVID-19, again, this will most probably lead to a complete revival of the air cargo sector. Some further statistics here coming from ICAO in collaboration with other organizations. So in terms of passenger traffic, as we've already seen, a massive reduction ranging from 59 to 62% for the entire year. Same case, of course, for airports, an estimated loss of approximately 60% of traffic and 61% or over in terms of airport revenues exceeding $104 billion. For airlines, a 54.7% reduction in terms of RPK, that's revenue passenger kilometers. For tourism, of course, we've seen that UNWTO published statistics showing a decline of international tourism receipts between $910 and $1.1 trillion. That's again similar the case for tourists as well. Trade, global economy also expected to suffer massively. ICAO has also produced some short-term forecasts, and as we can see, things are not that positive either. So a few months ago, there were some analysts expecting a V-shaped recovery. That's no longer the case. Most people now talk about a Nike swoosh-shaped path, which means that we're going to see some recovery. However, this is going to be slow and most probably painful. Whereas other people also talk about a W-shaped, a U-shaped, or an L-shaped path, which is, of course, very far away from what is desired. And if we want to look a bit further into the future, IATA produced some statistics, again, showing the recovery is going to be quite slow and painful. And it seems that we're not going to recover back to 2019 levels until 2024. And so it's going to take some time. So coming to the very heart of my presentation, the future of the aviation industry, well, essentially it's about managing uncertainties. And at present, there are quite a lot of uncertainties to consider. For example, how long the pandemic is going to last for, how deep it's going to be, what's going to be the repercussions for the entire economy, for the global recession that we currently see, how long the different lockdowns and the different travel restrictions are going to be, whether and when confidence of consumers is going to be restored in terms of travel, how long airlines are going to be able to withstand the current financial adversity. And of course, it's not only for airlines, it's also for airports, for ground handlers, for car rental companies, for everybody involved in the wider air transport supply chain. Nonetheless, we need to remember that air transport has proved quite resilient in the medium to longer term. So essentially and eventually normality should be somehow restored, most probably from 2022 onwards, 23, 24. Of course, that depends very much on somehow streamlining safety and hygiene measures. So remember what happened back in 9/11 when a system was close to collapse as a result of loss of confidence. Well, airlines managed to somehow go back to normal because they managed to streamline security. So what is of essence here is to streamline safety and hygiene measures, but from the airline's point of view, also from the entire supply chain point of view. But again, what we also need to see is some coordination and streamlining from governments. So we need to see streamline of responses vis-à-vis COVID-19 testing, vis-à-vis travel restrictions at an international level. Of course, global coordination may prove very difficult to do. However, I think that this can be realistically achieved at least at the level of regional blocs such as the European Union and ASEAN. And in addition to gaining back passenger confidence, which of course is of essence in the short term, what airlines need to do is to somehow rethink and re-engineer the business model. Because currently they are burning money, they expect to burn cash for quite a considerable time ahead, at least for the next 1 year, if not for the next 2 years. So they definitely need to somehow re-engineer the business model in order to get back on track and on a longer term sustainable track by boosting revenue and reducing costs. And finally, it's about bringing everybody together. So destination managers should work closely with transport stakeholders in order to ensure a careful and steady recovery. We've been talking about revenue management models in the context of airlines, in the context of different suppliers. Now I think it's time to talk about a revenue management model at a destination level. It's about coordinating efforts. It's about promoting sustainable tourist development at its highest possible level. This should be somehow prioritized. So that's all from me. Thank you very much once again, and I wish you all the best and a swift recovery for air transport and tourism. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Okay, thank you.